The thing about social media is that it projects life in rose-colored lenses. For instance, when I posted my day trip to Paris on my Instagram, nobody saw the struggle that I actually experienced. They wouldn't see all the weird ways that Google tried to tell us was the fastest way to get somewhere, or our faces when we got up to the Eiffel Tower just to realize that half of it was closed. They wouldn't see the moment that my lip gloss fell out of my hands into the Seine. They wouldn't feel the pain in our legs and our feet at the end of the day. They wouldn't feel dizzy from the lack of food that we had eaten all day, and they wouldn't have rode a collective 10 hours on trains with us. What you see is what someone wants to show you. Now, I've known this lesson for quite a long time. I mean, obviously, what we're mostly going to see is the good, because when something goes wrong, none of us are pulling out our phones to film it. It's just the last thing that you're thinking about. So when I edit a 24-hour day into a 2-minute video, of course you're going to see all my favorite moments, because those are the ones that I filmed. Moments that I will remember forever and that are 100% honest, despite the lack of struggle shown. But you will only see the good. So like I said, I've known this lesson for quite a while throughout my life, but something I've been more blind to is that our expectations do the same thing, except to us. They deceive us. Our expectations make us view life in rose-colored lenses as well. You see, when me and my best friend had the idea to do a surprise day trip to Paris for our brother's graduation gift, it was our most genius idea yet. How could it not be, you know? Wake up at 1:30 in the morning to catch a 3 a.m. train to London to catch a 6 a.m. Eurostar to get to Paris for 9. Once you get to Paris, spend hours roaming the street, going to every coffee shop on every corner, ordering cappuccinos and croissants all day long, grabbing a bottle of wine for the bottom of the Eiffel Tower, making it to Shakespeare & Co. and buying a little tote bag, and, stopping at the local drugstores and buying an expensive lotion just because you can, and then, all of a sudden there's this cute vintage store or a little market, and you can find all the old jewelry that you see people post on TikTok. And then you make your way to the Seine and you take a boat and you ride down the Seine. And lastly, you make sure that you cross a bridge and there's a busker playing an accordion on it, and you drop a couple euros in his basket. Sounds incredible, right? That is, until you try to do it. You see, expectations are never reality. The reality is that I was running on 2 hours of sleep because the night before, I had decided to stay up to watch England lose in the Euros. No comment. Our taxi from the train station to where the Eurostar was leaving canceled itself 2 minutes before we were supposed to take it. So we were left running through the streets of London at 4:30 in the morning, and my best friend's button had come off of her skirt, and therefore she was holding it shut while we were running. We made security at Eurostar by 15 minutes. Then we got to Paris and we realized that there was a time zone difference, so we had already lost an hour to the day. We made it to the Eiffel Tower just to see that potentially the whole thing was closed. Turned out just half of it was closed for the Olympics. And then we spent 45 minutes on our phones trying 10 different times to get a credit card to go through, to get tickets to go to the second floor of the Eiffel Tower. And then it rained on us. But the best part about the story is that you'd think by the time it rained on us, we would be just hysterically crying. But it was actually the rain that changed our whole perspective on the day. We were on the boat tour that we had booked, which was the first thing that went right for us, so we took that as the first win of the day, and all of a sudden, it started to rain. I looked at my best friend, I looked at her outfit, and then down at mine. I looked at her hair and thought about my hair, and I thought about the fact that we woke up early and put in the effort to make ourselves feel and look good for the day. And I thought about how in minutes the rain was going to ruin that. But instead of running down for cover like 80% of the people on that boat, we just watched them. We realized that in comparison to everything that we had gone through that day, the rain was the least of our worries. In fact, it was the rain that saved us. In the most cliche way I could ever say it, we viewed the rain as something that was washing away all the things that went wrong. It switched our mindset. Because, look, it was raining, but it was raining in Paris, and we were in it. I wasn't sure what I was going to write about for this week's episode, so I kind of just prayed about it. And then I went on my phone and went onto TikTok and wanted to see which recommended songs they would give me for some of my Paris videos, as any girl would love to do. And I was just kind of playing around with the audio and editing little clips, and then I went to go write a caption, and I wrote, "When Paris rains, you let her." And I realized the idea for this week's episode had been under my nose the whole time. In life, we have two ways to handle a situation that goes wrong. You either let the rain ruin your day, or you learn to dance in it. I had a dream a couple nights ago, and yes, bear with me, I'm going to be one of those people who tells you about their dream, but I think that this one is personally interesting. I took a lot out of it, actually, and I think it's applicable to today, so that's why I'm telling it. So in my dream, I was in a dollar store, and I had found all these insanely cool items, like tank tops with bows on them. Don't ask me why that was insanely cool to me in my dream, but it was something about it being in the dollar store. Like, it was so cute, and I just got really excited. And so I was going up and down all the aisles, and I was putting all of this stuff into a suitcase that I was pulling around with me, and I was going to go buy it after I had gone through everything. And somewhere along the way of going aisle through aisle and picking up stuff, I realized I didn't have my suitcase anymore. And I remember in a dream going back and forth through the aisles trying to find the suitcase again, because all of this cool stuff I had found was in it, and it was really, really important for me to find all of it. Finally, I just gave up because I couldn't find it. So I went to the cashier and I was like, "Hey, can you help me look for this? I don't know where it is. I would appreciate it." So this girl came and she helped me look for it, and we went back and down through the aisles, and all of a sudden my suitcase was there on the floor, and there was a group of homeless people surrounding it, and they were taking my stuff out of my suitcase. And I remember in the dream just immediately feeling angry. And I remember the cashier saying, "Oh, this must be your stuff," and pulling it away from them and giving it back to me. And she was also irritated. And I remember in my dream, I just looked at them and I said, "You can't do that." But in my head, at the same time, I was realizing I was telling these people who needed these items more than I did that they couldn't have them. On paper, stealing is wrong, and I think that we all know that. But when I woke up in the morning and I was thinking back on my dream, I realized that I had this unrealistic attachment to all of the stuff I had collected. Things that weren't even mine yet. I hadn't even paid for them. They were just random things that at most cost $1.25 because I was in a dollar store. But for some reason, I saw them as such important things for me to have that I let anger be my first emotion to leave my body. I was so attached to them. And in real life, I kind of sat there stunned by that realization that figuratively I could apply it to my life. Like, literally, of course, I couldn't. But there was things that in my heart I was holding on to that were actually hurting me more than they were helping me. There was worldly things that I was putting in front of my faith. And I wanted to bring this up because I feel like it applies directly to the expectations that we have for life, for our life. Like, we carry them so much that they get in the way of our actual happiness. When good things come to us, we are blinded by them because they're not what we expected. Or when bad things happen, it's the end of the world because it ruined the plans that we had for ourselves, rather than just learning to accept those things and move forward in the best way possible. So what are you holding on to in your life that's actually hurting you? Things like anger and jealousy and negative thought patterns and shame and guilt and laziness. I think it's important that we're honest with ourselves about what is actually holding us back, that we're holding on to, that we think is helping us, but it's not. And then we have to start letting them go, which, I'll be honest, is so difficult. Letting go is a very, very hard thing to do. And in the words of Bryan, one thing I have quickly come to know: nothing kills you slower than letting someone go. And that man was absolutely true when he said that. It's hard to let go of anything in life for two reasons. First, we probably have a strong attachment to whatever we're trying to let go of. And second, the situation is most likely unresolved or was resolved, but we didn't like the outcome. And that's why we can't let go, is because we believe that what should have happened should have been different than what did happen. So we ruminate on it and we keep going on and on over in our heads the actual scenario that we wish came out of that situation, or we wish, in Paris, I remember standing there and being like, I can't believe that this is how I feel right now, because I don't want to feel this while I'm here. This was supposed to be the best day, and I just kept feeling these negative emotions, and I had no energy because I had no sleep and I had no food in my system, and it was really, really hard to work against those immediate emotions. But if we don't learn to do that, they ruin the rest of our days. They take over our minds and ruin all the good that we could experience. Because the issue with wishing something was different than what it was, no matter how many times you rewrite that narrative in your head, it doesn't change the reality of the situation you're living in. I remember texting my mom in Paris that day, and this is what I said. This has been the hardest day. Like, I'm so ready to go home. Staying emotionally stable right now is near impossible, and it sucks to feel it because we're in Paris. But we've all just had such a frustrating day. Now, it's hard to truly paint the picture of what it felt like in that moment. The three of us all joked that no one's ever going to understand it the way that we understand it. Because when you say, oh, I had a bad day, but I was in Paris, it's like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, you were in Paris, though. Like, okay. And I don't say it's not the end of the world. Like, genuinely, there's way worse things that happen. This is just purely for example, because I feel like it exemplifies the point very well. But it's almost that made it worse, because we felt guilty for feeling bad at all, we almost wanted to deny ourselves from feeling the emotions that were coming up, because it felt so wrong to feel upset in the situation that we were in. The emotions were outweighing the place that we were standing in, ultimately. And it's so hard to specifically articulate, but I remember standing there thinking, I can't believe this is how I feel right now. This is the most important day to me of this trip, and this is what I feel like. But that strong emotion made me realize that I had two options in that situation. I could feel this way for the rest of the day, or I could learn to let it go and just embrace what I could do. And so we did. We happily completed 4 out of probably 20 things that we had on a list, which was our first mistake. When you plan a trip, don't think you can do 20 things in a day in a major city. It just won't happen. But anyways, okay. How do we apply these lessons to our everyday life? Because obviously this is a very not every circumstantial day issue. Like, this doesn't happen all the time. So honing more in, I think you need to practice getting in the way of your thoughts. so that we can stop these negative thought patterns. The things we're thinking about at that time are writing a narrative for us in our heads that's not real. No matter how much we might wish something is true, it will never change the world that we're actually living in. Which I know it is a harsh reality, but I've spent many years wishing that the outcome that I had was different than what did happen. And this actually just turned into me inflicting pain on myself that I didn't have to feel for years of my life. And I can tell you that this experience is hurting you more than it's helping you. It's not easy to go through. It's not easy to feel. And I know that both are not easy to feel, but prolonging the experience that you're living in, you don't have to do it that way. It is not easy, though. I know, going back to what Bryan said, I think he was right in the sense that it is slow. It does take time, and I know that nobody wants to hear that, but the reason it takes time is because the more life you live, the more experiences you have, and the more new ideas come into your brain, and the more you see of the world. So that time 4 years ago when you were hurt about a situation, now it's not that 4 years has passed, but it's that you've gone through experiences over those 4 years that have changed the way that you think. And that's the reason that things get easier and easier to deal with over time. It is slow, but you will get there. And the other truth that I believe is that actually living the reality that is true and embracing what you have will make you happy. Again, things are not easy. I'm not saying this in the sense that this is easy. I'm just thinking on life, and I think these are the things that I've done that have helped me the most to appreciate what I have around me. And doing that changes the life that you live, because you switch your perspective on what you do have, and it genuinely leads to a greater appreciation for what you have been blessed with in your life. Now for letting go of expectations. This one is really tough too. Because I think that we build a lot of expectations in life when we're planning something, and it's really hard to not plan something that needs to be organized. Like, for instance, this trip, it had to be planned, so you anticipate it, you get excited. Or say you have a concert you're going to, you have to plan your rides, your outfits, you have to plan money, what you're spending, and all of these things slowly build this anticipation in your head. So it's really hard to stop it, and I almost think it's sad to not let yourself anticipate and get excited. So it might be bad advice, but I'm not going to tell you to not do that, because I think it's one of the best parts of looking forward to things in life is to anticipating all the good that's going to come. And it's an exciting event you get to look forward to, and I think those are good emotions to feel. So rather, I think what we can do is start practicing the act of accepting whatever comes your way. Accept the good and the bad. And remember that all of your past great memories are usually things that came out of times you didn't plan, like finding your new favorite band and going for a random drive for an hour in town and just having a blissful feeling, or showing up at a concert and the band throws in that random song that wasn't on the set list that is your favorite song, and it's a shock to you because you didn't expect to hear it, but you're so excited that they chose to play it. Or deciding to stay for one more drink out with your friends, or getting into a conversation around a fire one night that ultimately changes your life and the way you think and the way you interact with the people around you. These are the situations that when we look back on, we never planned, but they end up being our favorite moments in life. And I think for context, that's important to remember when you're in a situation that you feel like you're so frustrated that things didn't go the way you hoped that they did. that you just have to remember that sometimes you can't curate the best moments that you want to experience. So to finish off this thought, there was a quote I found on Pinterest and I wanted to read it. Be more involved with life and less attached to it. So rather than trying to control the outcome of whichever situation you're in, trust yourself to be able to handle the bad if it comes your way, and embrace the good when it shows up. That afternoon in Paris when the rain came, it had a 99% chance of ruining the rest of the day. We were all running on basically no sleep from the night before, let alone the entire trip before. We had been going to activity after activity, to conversation with different people after new conversations, and figuring out transit that we had no idea about. We were not in the mindset to handle anything going wrong, let alone what felt like everything going wrong. That rain should have been the last straw. We should have been in tears over the fact that the perfect day that we had tried to plan as a surprise was nothing that we anticipated it to be. But instead, we chose to give in to the world. We gave in to the way the world wanted to run the day. And it was that choice that ended up turning the rest of the day around and making it so that when I look back on the situation, I don't only feel these sad emotions, I feel so much joy because we had such a good afternoon together. So next time it rains on you in Paris, let it rain. As always, all social media and email and sources and everything are in the show notes below. Quick side note, if you're listening on Spotify, I did want to say I saw that Spotify released comments, which I think is really cool. It's a cool feature to interact, so if you feel like chatting more and you're not on YouTube, then this is a really good way for you to do that now. But anyways, let's let music bring us together. And don't forget to grow up slowly.